I'm Nate, 32, and up until this year, I thought my family was dysfunctional in the we fight on holidays but hug it out by dessert kind of way. Turns out, I had no idea just how deep the entitlement ran. Not until Thanksgiving turned into a loyalty test I never signed up for. Let me rewind. A few years ago, my grandfather, the only person in the family who actually saw me as more than a walking ATM, passed away. He built a successful small business in construction, and when he sold it before retiring, he made a decent chunk of money. Everyone assumed he'd split his estate evenly. But to everyone's surprise, especially my mother's, he left almost everything to me. Not because I was his favorite, though she always said that like it was a crime. He told me himself, shortly before he passed, that I was the only one who ever listened to him. The only one who didn't ask him for money, just his time. That meant something to him. My mom was furious. My brother, Tyler, was devastated, and my sister Megan tried to hide her disappointment but couldn't stop herself from muttering figures at the reading of the will. I stayed quiet. I wasn't about to argue over a man's final wishes after he was gone, especially not with people who'd treated him like a piggy bank while he was still breathing. Over the next few months, I offered to help out in small ways, paid off a few minor medical bills, covered a surprise car repair, sent flowers on birthdays. Nothing flashy. I didn't want anyone thinking I was trying to buy affection. But somehow, that just made it worse. Tyler's always had big ideas. When we were kids, he wanted to be a movie director, then a pro gamer, then a restaurateur. Now, at 29, his latest dream was to launch a clothing line for spiritual entrepreneurs. Whatever that meant. I tried to support him emotionally. I listened, I asked questions, even helped him design a website. But when he asked me to invest $150,000 to get it off the ground, I told him gently that I couldn't fund something that unstable. That's when the storm started brewing. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were tense. Mom started dropping hints, little guilt trips about how family supports family, and money means nothing if you can't use it to lift others up. Megan, who'd married into money herself, was less subtle. If I got that kind of inheritance, I wouldn't be hoarding it like smog on a pile of gold. It wasn't funny the first time, and by the fifth, it was just grating. I knew what was coming, but I hoped foolishly that they'd drop it. Thanksgiving was held at my parents' house like always. A big colonial-style place that had been in the family since before I was born. When I pulled up, I already had that familiar knot in my stomach. I hadn't even made it through the front door before Tyler came up to me, arms wide, grinning like we were best friends. "Big bro," he shouted. "Ready to talk business?" I gave him a polite nod and moved past him. I could already smell the tension mixed in with the stuffing. Dinner started off civil, more or less. Megan bragged about her recent trip to Santorini. Tyler gave a half-hour speech about how spiritual branding was the next big wave in consciousness. I tried to tune it out and focus on my plate. But it didn't take long before the real agenda revealed itself. "So," Mom said suddenly, her voice cutting through the clatter of cutlery, "Tyler's been working so hard lately. Really chasing his vision. It's so inspiring." I kept chewing. Tyler puffed his chest. "And you know," she continued, louder this time, "with just a little help, his business could really take off." I didn't say anything. Megan jumped in. "Honestly, Nate, you could change his life. One transfer, and boom, our brother's a founder. A visionary. More like a leech," I muttered under my breath. Mom caught it. Her jaw tensed. "Excuse me," she asked, her fork clinking sharply against her plate. I looked up. Calm. Steady. "I've said no. Multiple times." Tyler scoffed. "What, you think you earned that money? You got lucky. You sat around and Grandpa dropped it in your lap." "That's enough," I said firmly. But Mom wasn't done. She stood up, literally stood up at the table, and looked around like she was delivering a monologue. "You're either with this family, or you're against us." The room went quiet. I blinked. I was so stunned, I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I wiped my mouth with a napkin, folded it neatly beside my plate, and stood up. "Got it," I said. Tyler grinned. "So you'll wire it?" I didn't answer. Just grabbed my keys from the side table, nodded to the one cousin who hadn't said a word all night, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say anything dramatic. But in that silence, something in me snapped. I sat in my car for a few minutes, heart pounding. Not with anger. With clarity. I had spent years trying to be the peacekeeper, the provider, the one who never made waves. But that night, I realized I wasn't part of a family. I was part of a system. A system where my worth was directly tied to my bank balance. where saying no made me an enemy, where the people who were supposed to love me couldn't see past what they thought I owed them. So I opened my laptop the minute I got home, logged into every account I shared with them, accounts I'd helped set up, co-signed for, or just temporarily added my name to so they could qualify. Mortgage assistance? Gone. Credit lines I helped extend through my credit? Closed. Business account for Tyler's LLC that I'd co-signed to help him apply for a grant? Disabled. All it took was one email. Not even a phone call. Just a polite, professional message to the bank, withdrawing my support and authorization. I went to bed early that night. Slept better than I had in months. By the time I woke up the next morning, around 7:30, coffee half-brewed, my phone was vibrating off the kitchen counter like it was possessed. 27 missed calls. 11 voicemails. For new emails marked urgent in the subject line. And that was just from Tyler. I scrolled, slowly, watching the meltdown unfold in real time. Megan had texted, "What did you do?" My mom had left a voicemail that started off calm, measured, and then spiraled into the kind of unhinged rant you only hear from someone watching their house of cards collapse. I ignored it all. Instead, I opened the banking app and stared at the pending requests folder. They'd already tried to re-enable the business account. Tyler had submitted a form claiming the shutdown was an error. I flagged it. Declined. Megan had tried to reopen a line of credit she assumed was still tied to my score. Declined. The mortgage account I'd once co-signed on back when Dad had a health scare and needed help refinancing was frozen, and without my authorization, it wasn't going anywhere. That's when I got the call from my aunt, Lana. Now, Lana was always the more grounded one, the only extended relative who didn't treat me like a vending machine. She didn't beat around the bush. "Nate," she said, "what is happening? Your mom just called crying, saying you've destroyed everything." I took a breath. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped holding up the walls while they kept hitting me with bricks. She was quiet for a beat. Then she said, "I've never seen her this frantic. You might want to brace yourself." And no, she wasn't kidding. That afternoon, I was summoned, and yes, that's the word they used, to a family emergency meeting at my parents' house. The same house where less than 24 hours earlier I'd been told to choose a side. The gall of it. I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to let them stew in the consequences. But another part, the part that spent too many years hoping they'd finally see me as more than a checkbook, wanted closure. When I walked in, the living room was packed. Mom, Dad, Tyler, Megan, even my cousin Josh, who usually avoids drama like the plague, was there, arms crossed, eyes darting between people like he was watching a courtroom scene unfold. Mom stood up immediately. "Nate, sit. We need to talk." I stayed standing. She launched in without waiting. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The mortgage is frozen. The business account, Tyler can't even pay his supplier. Megan's card is declining at every store." "I'm aware," I said flatly. Tyler jumped in. "This is sabotage. You tanked everything over what? One disagreement? You're ruining your own family." I looked at him, slowly. I said no. "You all said that meant I was against you. So I acted accordingly." Megan rolled her eyes. "You're being petty. You think Grandpa left you that money so you could punish us?" "No," I said, my voice calm but firm. "He left it to me because he knew this day would come. Because he saw how you all treated him. Used him. Just like you've used me." Dad finally spoke. "Son, we're family. We don't always say the right things, but we stick together. We help each other." "And where was that help?" I said, "when I was drowning in debt after college and too proud to ask? Where was it when I skipped meals to pay rent because Tyler maxed out the card I co-signed on? Where was it when Grandpa passed and you all acted like I'd stolen something from you?" The silence in the room was deafening. For a brief second, I thought I saw something like shame flicker across my mother's face, but it vanished quickly. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "It's just money." "No," I replied. "It's never just money to you. It's leverage. It's a reason to guilt, manipulate, and control. And I'm done letting you." Tyler stood, pacing now. "You think this makes you better than us? You're not some saint, Nate. You're selfish. Grandpa wouldn't have wanted this." I smiled bitterly. "He told me, actually, that if you ever came for me the way you went after him, to walk away. To protect what's mine. That man saw what was coming before any of us did." Mom's voice cracked. "We're your family." "No," I said, grabbing my jacket. "You're a group of people I share DNA with. Family? That's earned." And then I left. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, An anonymous Reddit account with exactly one post made a thread titled, "How do I deal with a greedy sibling who froze our family's finances out of spite?" It started gaining traction. Someone, "Gee, I wonder who," was trying to paint me as some cold-hearted villain on the internet. The comments were split. Some called me a fool. Others saw through the narrative. I ignored it. Mostly. Until someone DM'd me screenshots of a group text between Megan, Tyler, and a few of their friends. In it, they were planning to ambush me at my work, of all places. Megan had even joked, "Let's see how the boss reacts when we show up and tell them who they really hired." That's when I realized the lines had been crossed. Not just crossed, bulldozed. They weren't just angry anymore. They were retaliating. And what they didn't know was that I'd already been documenting everything. I spent the next 2 days in a strange limbo, calm on the outside, but wired like I was sitting on a live wire. I went to work, kept my head down, acted normal. But every time my phone lit up or someone knocked on my office door, I half expected Tyler to come bursting in with a fake sob story, or Megan to show up with some dramatic scene meant to get me fired or embarrassed. I wasn't paranoid. I knew these people. I grew up with them. I knew how they operated when their backs were against the wall. They didn't reflect. They retaliated. And sure enough, it didn't take long. On Thursday morning, I arrived at my office to find my assistant, Casey, waiting by the front desk with an awkward look on her face. "Hey, just a heads up," she said, shifting her weight nervously. "There were 2 people here earlier asking for you, a woman and a guy. Said they were family. I told them you were in a meeting, and they got kind of weird." I closed my eyes and sighed. What did they do? They didn't yell or anything, but they started asking questions about your salary, whether the company ran background checks, stuff like that. Then they left when I said I was calling security. I nodded slowly. "Thanks, Casey. If they come back, call building management. And record it if you can." She gave me a sympathetic look. "Are you okay?" I hesitated. "I'm not sure yet." After she walked off, I sat in my office with the door closed and stared at the blank document on my laptop. I'd already drafted a timeline of events, something I started the night of Thanksgiving after that first string of voicemails came in. Dates, names, amounts, screenshots of text messages, bank records, even audio clips, because Grandpa, God bless him, had been paranoid in his own right and always said, "Record the conversations that matter, just in case the day comes when people rewrite history." Turns out he was right. That day had come. The Reddit post was still active, by the way. By now it had over 300 comments, and whoever had written it, Tyler, I was sure, was replying to almost everyone like some poor, misunderstood victim of financial cruelty. It was absurd. He even claimed I'd threatened him physically. I didn't even dignify it with a response. But I did do something else. I called my lawyer. Not the family lawyer. Not the firm that handled the estate. My own. Someone I'd quietly retained after the inheritance came through, just in case things ever got messy. His name was Mark, mid-40s, all suits and salt and pepper calm. I laid everything out for him, the attempted ambush at my job, the Reddit post, the weaponized sob stories. I forwarded screenshots, call logs, and a few emails with very unsubtle threats buried under passive-aggressive pleasantries. Mark listened patiently. Then he said, "How far are you willing to go?" And that was the moment I realized I was done playing defense. "All the way," I said. "I want them to stop. And if that means blowing up every lie they've ever told about me, so be it." He nodded. "We'll start with a cease and desist. Then we'll go after the slander. And if they keep poking, we pull the receipts. I assume you have those." "Oh," I said, clicking open the folder on my desktop. "I've got receipts in color-coded folders with timestamps, backup drives, and cloud redundancy." He chuckled. "You'd be surprised how rare that is." "No," I said. "I wouldn't." That same afternoon, Tyler emailed me directly, no subject line, just a single sentence, "If you don't fix this, I swear you'll regret it." I didn't reply. Instead, Mark sent him and Megan both a cease and desist letter, citing harassment, attempted defamation, and interference with my employment. A copy went to my parents, too, with language carefully crafted to be polite but crystal clear. Any further attempts to harass, defame, or financially manipulate our client will result in legal escalation. The fallout? Immediate. Tyler went radio silent. Megan called me 10 times in an hour, then texted, "What happened to family?" And then came the kicker, Mom. She showed up. At my apartment. I didn't even know she knew where I lived, but she was there, at my door, and her pearls, and that too-strong perfume she wore to every important moment, like it was armor. I opened the door a crack. She tried to push past me, but I stood firm. "Nathaniel," she said, voice trembling with rage and wounded pride. "What have you done to us?" "To you," I repeated, staring at her. "You mean, what have you done to me?" "For years. For decades." She shook her head like I was the one being irrational. "We're family." "No," I said, my voice low. "You're a group of people who use love as a bargaining chip and loyalty as a leash." I cut the leash. "I didn't raise you to be this cruel." "No, you raised me to be useful. But the bank is closed." Her face twisted. "So that's it? You're just walking away? After everything we've done for you?" I blinked. "Everything I've done for you? You mean?" "Because I don't recall asking you to co-sign loans you defaulted on. I don't remember begging you to put my name on your credit cards. But I do remember paying off your debts, cleaning up Tyler's messes, and being the only one who visited Grandpa when he was dying." She didn't say anything, just stared. Then, without a word, she turned and walked down the hall, heels echoing on the tile. I closed the door behind her. I waited. After that hallway confrontation with my mother, I knew something else was coming. Not immediately, but soon. People like her, like all of them, don't stop because they see the damage they've caused. They stop when the damage circles back around and hits them. And true to form, it only took 5 days. It started with an email from a local journalist. Subject line: request for comment on family dispute. I remember staring at it, heart sinking as I read. "Hi Nathaniel. I'm reaching out in connection with a story being pitched by Tyler and Megan, last name, regarding allegations of financial abuse and family inheritance misconduct. They claim you've used your late grandfather's estate to deliberately sabotage their business and livelihood, and are seeking a feature in our local entrepreneurs column. We'd like to give you an opportunity to respond." It was absurd, but it was also dangerous. Because even though their accusations were laughable to anyone who knew me, in a digital age, optics matter. Reputation matters. And if they painted me as the spoiled heir villain in a sob story, especially in a piece with even a hint of credibility, my career could take a hit. My name could be tainted. That's when I understood something chilling. They weren't just trying to get their money back. They wanted to ruin me. That same day, Mark, my lawyer, got the message too. I forwarded him everything. He called me 30 minutes later with the same controlled intensity he used when we first drafted the cease and desist. "They're pushing it," he said. "Hard. You ready to push back?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." The next week was a blur of preparation. Mark and I assembled every file, every screenshot, every bank transaction, and even an old voicemail from Grandpa. One where he explicitly stated he was leaving me the bulk of his estate because I was the only one who hadn't exploited him. We also uncovered something I had completely forgotten. A legal document from 3 years prior that Tyler had signed, waiving any claim to future support from Grandpa in exchange for a one-time $40,000 gift. It was airtight. His signature, witnessed, dated, and filed. And Megan? Well, turns out she wasn't quite the victim she pretended to be either. She'd received bridal support from Grandpa, $25,000 toward her wedding, and there was a thank you note to prove it. The hypocrisy was jaw-dropping. We didn't just send a rebuttal to the journalist. We sent everything. Mark's letter was a masterclass in professionalism, lined with subtle fire. Our client would be happy to speak on the record, provided that any story published contains an accurate representation of events and does not perpetuate unfounded claims which may constitute defamation. The journalist never replied. But 3 days later, Tyler's Reddit post mysteriously vanished. So did his Instagram, where he'd been posting dramatic healing through betrayal quotes and vague digs about certain family members. Megan made her account private. And just like that, their smear campaign dried up. But I wasn't done. Because while they were busy trying to burn my name down, they'd forgotten something. I still had control over the family trust. The one Grandpa had set up decades ago to help future generations. A trust I'd been named sole executor of when he passed, and which had some very specific clauses in the fine print. Clauses no one else had bothered to read. One of those clauses? In the event any beneficiary initiates public legal, media, or reputational action against another beneficiary, said actor's access to the trust may be revoked, pending executor review. So I revoked them, not out of spite, out of necessity, because Grandpa knew what they were capable of. He'd seen it happen before. How his own brother once turned on him for a piece of land. How that drama tore their family apart. So he built safeguards. And now, I was the safeguard. I sent the revocation letters via certified mail. No fanfare. Just clean, clinical language. Tyler and Megan were officially removed from the trust. Effective immediately. A week later, the screaming started again. My phone lit up like fireworks. Voicemails, messages from fake numbers, even an email from my dad begging me to reconsider. "You've made your point," he wrote. "Now let's fix this." But that was the thing. They thought this was about a point. That I'd frozen the accounts and pulled support just to prove something. They still didn't understand. It wasn't revenge. It was release. For the first time in years, I wasn't tangled in their crises. I wasn't the fallback, the fixer, the guilt provider. I was just me. Independent. Clear-headed. Free. Tyler eventually tried to file a complaint in probate court, claiming I had unjustly enriched myself at the expense of the family. It went nowhere. Mark showed up to court with a 3-inch binder of evidence and walked the judge through every detail, from the trust language to the harassment I'd endured. The judge dismissed the case in under 20 minutes. As for Megan, she made one last attempt. I was at a local cafe when she slid into the seat across from me without asking. She looked tired. No makeup, hair pulled back, voice quiet. "I just want to know why," she said. "Why would you destroy your own family like this?" I looked at her for a long time, then said, "Because it wasn't a family. It was a machine. And I was the fuel. I just stopped pouring myself in." She blinked. "So that's it. You're done with us?" "No," I said. "You were done with me the moment I said no. Everything after that was just you proving it." She didn't cry. I'll give her that. She just stood up and left. That was the last time I saw any of them in person. It's been 8 months now. In that time, I've changed everything. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city, took a sabbatical from work and started traveling. Small towns, places Grandpa loved. I even found an old storage unit of his with journals, letters, and photos I'd never seen before. I spent a week reading through them, and for the first time, I felt like I was getting to know the man behind the quiet wisdom. I donated a chunk of the inheritance to a community center he used to volunteer at. Quietly. No plaque, no name. Just a note. For someone who always showed up when no one else did. I don't miss the drama, the noise, the empty holidays filled with fake smiles and secret scorekeeping. I've made new traditions, real ones, with people who don't see me as a wallet or a resource. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if they ever sit around that old dining room table, staring at the empty seat where I used to be, and think, maybe we went too far. But I don't dwell on it. Because in the end, I didn't lose a family. I just finally saw them for who they really were. And I walked away. That was the victory. That was the peace. That was the freedom.